And tonight we're going to be focusing on one of the priorities in the plan, and that is to have a prepared and resilient county. I'm just going to pause for a moment while one of our Spanish interpreters has a message for any of our guests who are uh, speaking in Spanish tonight.
Muy buenas tardes. Para participar en la reunión en español en hoy, por favor vayan a la parte inferior de su pantalla, hagan clic en el globo terráqueo que ven allí, seleccionen español y o tienen la opción de silenciar el audio original si escuchan dos voces. Gracias.
Thank you, Daniel. Let's go ahead and go to that next slide. We're going to tell you a little bit about what you can expect tonight. And I know that we want to get this kicked off with Supervisor Glenn McGorty. Supervisor McGorty, you want to tell us a little bit about what's in store for us tonight and why we're going through this planning process? And Anne, go ahead and advance to that next slide, please.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. So the Board of Supervisors feels very strongly that strategic planning is an essential part of good government, and I certainly believe that, having come out of the University of California and also served on the board of Ukiah Unified School District, where we've done strategic plans. So with limited resources, you have to know how you're going to spend them and what your priorities are. And certainly we are a limited resource county. We have a large area, a small population, and not a lot of money. So the money that we do have at our discretion, we want to spend wisely. And we also want to take care of ourselves and each other. So it's one of the things I ran on, was that we needed to be sure that we were safe and healthy. We've had a lot of challenges during the last 4 years here in Mendocino County. They're not over. I heard something very alarming just as we went on from Ann Mulgard about the number of cases of COVID that have just seemed to have exploded here in the county today. And oh boy, it's like you just want to do sort of a normal average kind of job, and it's not allowed because we keep getting faced with things like fires and drought and COVID. And so to be better prepared, you need to plan. And that's what you want. You want to be able to know what are our priorities when we get into difficulty. What tools should we have in the toolbox that are at our disposal to make good choices? And we're getting very good at responding to disasters. I got to be honest with you. So, like for instance, this year in 10 weeks, we went from having no water in the town of Mendocino available to purchase for people who are on whose wells have gone dry. We went from that, because Fort Bragg ran out of water. We went from that to having the state provide us with $10 million, $2 million rather, to transport water from the city of Ukiah to Fort Bragg for distribution for people whose wells have gone dry. So that was really a team effort, and it shows how we're learning to work as a county when we're faced with emergencies. It won't be the first or the last. We know that, so that's why we're going to talk tonight about how do we prepare for emergencies, and how do we make ourselves safe? What's the process? What should we strategize in terms of importance? What comes first? How do we do this? So we would like to have feedback from you as we talk about what we've come up with so far in the plan, and the process will be described a little bit to you here briefly. But mostly, I just want to welcome you, and I really appreciate your attention and look forward to the presentation tonight.
Thank you very much, Supervisor McGorty. My name is BJ Bischoff, and I'm one of the facilitators working to help put the plan together. As is Gary Hockman, you see him there, and Ann Mulgard is our project manager. She's working in public health, as Supervisor McGorty explained, and she'll tell us a little bit about her role as well. But tonight we're going to tell you a little bit about what we've done in the planning process to get to this point, and we'll introduce the 4 different strategic plan priorities that have emerged over the last several months. And then we're going to introduce our draft goals for a prepared and resilient county. It's one of the 4 priorities. And then we'll introduce some specific objectives under that specific goal. And then we'll stop after each objective and get your feedback on that objective, introduce another one, get more feedback, etc. And we really want your ideas this evening on what do you think about the objectives that you see presented? What's missing? What do we need to add? We just really want your thoughts on that throughout the evening. Gary, tell us a little bit about your role with this, if you would.
Thanks, BJ. As BJ mentioned before, my name's Gary Hockman. I'm a resident of Sonoma County and do organization development and leadership development, and have worked with other county plans, but have been privileged to work with this task force here and with the community and the supervisors in your county. Tonight's a great opportunity for everybody that joins us to get involved in sharing their ideas. And I just want to thank you in advance for your support and the level of engagement I'm sure you'll demonstrate tonight. Your input is very valuable. I'm going to turn to Anne, who's the project manager and is the interim director of public health and has been an integral part of this project from the start. Anne?
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Welcome. I am thrilled to be a part of this effort because we can always do better. And that's the exciting thing. It's really a group of people, both employees and elected members of our Board of Supervisor, outside experts, and everybody in the county who's been participating to see how we can really come together and leverage our energy and our commitment to improving our daily life here in Mendocino County. So we're thrilled, and I want to assure you of one thing, that we do have a plan of implementation. We have time set aside, resources set aside to make sure that after we prioritize and narrow the scope of what we're able, with limited resources in a smallish county, what we're able to accomplish, then we'll be saying, okay, so what does that really mean? Where does the rubber meet the road? Who's responsible for what? What's our timeline? Things like that, because we're not wasting everybody's time to put this on a shelf. It will be rolled into, for example, as public health, it will be rolled into my personal goals for the following 6 months within public health. And then as a county, it will be rolled into our budget process that will be in April, May, finalized in June of this year, just as two examples of how this will become manifest in the county. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much. Let's go to that next slide, Ann, and talk about our process for tonight. You're going to hear from county supervisors, well, specifically Supervisor McGordy tonight. And the people that you see on your screen are employees of the county who've been involved in helping us put this plan together. And then Gary mentioned he's a consultant. I'm a consultant. Sarah Sturt, you'll see, is a consultant. We're all from Sonoma County, and we're delighted to be able to work with our sister county across the border. And we're going to explain the planning process and describe the draft goals for you. And then throughout the conversation, we're going to ask for your thoughts and ideas. And it's all about how we can have a prepared and resilient county. So that's what we're focusing on tonight. On the next slide, we just have some names of some people that are helping to put this town hall together. And it's so important that you know who they are. Let's go to that next slide. And Maya Stewart is the person who's our town hall coordinator, and she's been making sure that the Q&A works and the chat and all those good things. Scott Spears is with Information Services, our technical director tonight, and we have two Spanish interpreters with us. Daniel Tamayo and Daniela Guanipa will be are doing our interpretation right now on that Spanish channel. And as I mentioned, Sarah and Gary and I will be fielding all of your comments and questions tonight. Mostly we're looking for comments. I know you probably have a lot of questions, but the more comments you can give us, the better it's going to be, because we really need your comments, your thoughts, your ideas, your creativity to add to this plan. So I'm going to also mention that Maya is going to be checking emails that come in, because we're encouraging you to send emails to us. And I'll put that email address up on that next slide. She's also monitoring YouTube and Facebook. So we're going to be seeing what's coming in on YouTube and Facebook. And let's go ahead to that next slide. This is a really important slide. This represents the people from the county employees who have volunteered to be on the task force to really help to drive this plan, to champion this plan as we've been putting this together. You've already met Ann Molgard from Public Health. We have Buffy Barasa with Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. Katie Ford from Human Resources. Elizabeth Garcia from Agriculture is on tonight. You'll be seeing her. Also, we have Michael Oliphant. He was on last night from Planning and Building. Megan Van Sant was on last night from Social Services, and Eisen Locatelli is on tonight from Probation, and Glenn McGordy is on, as you've seen, and John Hashak, another supervisor, was on last night. He's not, I don't believe he's able to be with us tonight. So I'm so excited that this team has been working diligently, meeting regularly, and going through all the data that's been coming in. Elizabeth Garcia is going to keep us on track as a timekeeper, and Anne's going to be managing those PowerPoint slides. So you'll hear me say, Anne, next slide, a few times. Anne, next slide. Great. The email address that we're going to be asking you to use is govt strategic plan at mendocinocounty.org. And I know that I was just talking to Maya. She's been transcribing all of those and putting them all into one document so that we can sort through them. And go ahead and use that email address. You don't even have to just do it now. You can do it afterward, next week or so, because we're not going to be taking this plan to the Board of Supervisors for them to review until a little bit later in the month. So over the next week, we really want to get your emails, ideas, and through the email, you can send longer ideas than you can tonight. Tonight, we're going to ask you to place all of your comments in the Q&A. I know a lot of you may be familiar with the chat, but let's use the Q&A function because you can comment and then you can react to each other's comments. And we've got a log at the end of this. At the end of the evening, we'll have a spreadsheet of all of your comments in one place. So it's a really, really good tool for us to use. We're going to let you know that we've deactivated that upvote, the thumbs up feature, because it's just easier for us to track if you just can type directly, because when you do the upvote, things fly up to the top. And it's hard for us to keep track of it. So we've deactivated that. The email address, I mentioned that before. Remember, today's event is being recorded. And we're going to ask you to use respectful language, avoiding personal attacks, language that you would expect that would be comfortable hearing, because there may be children in the background looking over your shoulder, reading over your shoulder. So we're going to ask you to be respectful of everybody. So now let's move into like, what is a strategic plan? And Anne's got that information on the next slide. And basically, a strategic planning activity helps to set priorities for the organization. And Supervisor McGordy explained that to you. And it really helps to focus the energy and resources that the county has. And it also strengthens the operations of the staff to implement the priorities. It makes sure everyone's working toward common goals, establishes agreement upfront on what results you can expect, and it allows you to assess and adjust the direction the organization is going in to respond to a changing environment. And as Supervisor McGordy said earlier, we've had a very significant changing environment since 2017 in many different ways. And because of that, we need to make sure that we've got a plan that's nimble enough to react to and be proactive in times of change. On the next slide, we talk about the characteristics of a plan. And a key component of a strategic plan is that it involves community input, which is why we're here tonight. The characteristics also include setting priorities to help us achieve a desired result and defining specific goals and specific actions to achieve those priorities. So that's what we're going to be presenting to you. As a result of the feedback we've gotten so far, we've come up with some specific objectives for you to react to. The other thing that I think is really important about a strategic plan, it allows the staff to align their work with the priorities so that they know that what they're doing on a regular basis is in alignment with the direction that the Board of Supervisors have voted to go. And again, it allows for flexibility. Gary's going to share a little bit with you about how we got to where we are now. And he'll tell us a little bit about that timeline we're on. Gary?
Great, thank you, BJ. This page actually has two distinct components, and on the left-hand side of the page, there's a timeline that's described. We started this process about 6 months ago. We launched it with a series of one-on-one conversations with the supervisors, with the Board of Supervisors and the CEO, to really understand their perceptions of the county's strengths, weaknesses, what were the opportunities and threats, and their priorities for the future of the county. We're taking a 5-month horizon as we do this work, and what we came out with was an initial framework that would really form the basis of the rest of the plan. We went with that framework to the department heads and got their input in terms of what's possible, in terms of what could we accomplish over the next 5 years, and took those inputs, worked with our task force, and then refined them and brought them back to the employees. And we've done several focus group with the employee population. We've actually surveyed the entire employee population. I think got nearly a 40% return on our survey, and took those inputs then again, worked with the task force to further refine the plan, and then went out to the community. We've done several groups in the community already, and now we're doing these 3 town halls, the last 2 nights and tonight, our third and final one, to gain your input. And as BJ said before, we can't answer every question people have, but we really want to get your edits, your eyes on the plan, get your suggestions. If you like what you see, we want to get an amen. We want to get yes, right direction, good idea. But if you have constructive criticism or ways we can change it to make it better, please let us know. Our plan is to finalize this with your input over the next month or so and bring it to the Board of Supervisors for final approval, likely in February. On the right-hand side of the page, you'll see how the plan is divided up. So this is the nomenclature or the terminology, if you will. And the biggest bucket on the plan are the priorities. There's 4 strategic priorities, and I'll introduce those in a minute. Tonight, we'll be talking about one of those areas, the prepared and resilient county. And under that, you'll see multiple goals. Goals are our broad aim statements. They represent a desired future, and they're written broadly, intentionally. Under that, you'll see more specific initiatives and objectives. And these are milestones that we can start, checking off the list, if you will, in order to achieve the goals that are on the plan. The action planning and budgeting will actually take place after the plan is approved. And under the CEO's office guidance, the department heads will be working together to take responsibility for different parts of the plan and to ensure the budget is in place for the priorities that the supervisors set. Thanks, Anne. If you could go to the next slide, I'll introduce those 4 strategic priority areas. If you've joined us earlier this week, you've already seen this slide, and priority in the center is an effective county government organization. We heard from the employees that this was very critical to their future. We are not doing a public session on this because most of the items here are very internally focused, driven really by organization, process, and so on. The other 3 areas we are doing town halls on. We've done one on Tuesday night on a safe and healthy county, yesterday on a thriving economy, and the 4th pillar or strategic priority is tonight's topic, a prepared and resilient county. And again, the spirit here is that I think Supervisor McGordy said we can't do everything. And so what we're trying to do is focus our plan on the most important areas where the organization has resources and capacity to accomplish significant things in the next 5 years.
Thank you, Gary. That's great background information. What we want to share with you now are the 3 strategic goals under this specific priority of a prepared and resilient county. So what we'll do is I'm going to introduce these 3, and then we'll go ahead and share with you some objectives under each one. And then after we do that, we're going to stop and get your feedback, and then present another one, get more feedback. So you'll have 3 chances to provide opportunity for input, feedback, and there'll be pretty long stretches of time that will allow that to happen. So again, a lot of this information has come based on the feedback we've gotten from employees. In addition to the survey that Gary was mentioning that we had with employees, we also had a lot of targeted focus groups with employees and individual interviews with key employees as well as community focus groups. We've had those as well. So just want to remind you of that. So let's look at these. The first one is to increase disaster and emergency preparedness and resiliency. The second is to ensure access to rural fire protection and emergency medical services. And the third priority goal is to improve and maintain transportation and road systems and access routes. So, Gary, let's go into a little bit of depth on that first one here, if we could.
Okay, here we go. This is the first goal, increase disaster emergency preparedness, and resiliency. And there's three objectives under that. And these objectives, again, look more like milestones or actions that could be taken to support that goal. The first two deal with the county's Emergency Operations Center. The first one is to create and implement a training and operational plan to ensure 24/7 readiness of the county's Emergency Operations Center, EOC. And so this is pretty critical, obviously, because having the processes in place, regardless of which personnel are available, and having a stable and dependable system is absolutely critical for the safety of the county. Second, develop a site for a permanent EOC when necessary, with necessary and up-to-date equipment. And we can let some of our panelists talk a little more about that in terms of what the current state is and why this is so critical. And the third is to post social media messages, provide training programs, and conduct public meetings in English and Spanish throughout the county on the topic of emergency preparedness. So that's much more of an outreach strategy to support the public in terms of preparedness. So with that, I'm wondering maybe either Eisen or Supervisor McGorty, one of you could kind of tell us the current status of the EOC and why number 2 is so important to have a permanent EOC.
Eisen, you want to field this call? But I feel it's a little closer to your core group of collaborators professionally, and maybe you can discuss this better than me.
Yeah, I'll give it a crack. I think I've, since 2017 in particular, when Mendocino County started being hit by the fires, the wildfires, and other disasters, the Emergency Operations Center wasn't known by every department or department head or what our functions were, where we were to report, and it's been an ongoing need. It's moved around a lot, and sometimes it's moved around during an actual disaster due to the length of the disaster. So having looking at the past 4 years and what we've been through as a county, having something that's more permanent and more accessible and where we know where it is and how to respond, how to function. I think the sheriff's office and Brent Blazer, I think he may be even a participant on this call. There's a lot of work being done in the county, but it also is there still needs to be a lot of support behind it, a lot of preparation, and a lot of structure for permanency instead of the pop-up nature that's often happening with the emergency, with the EOC and with our department heads. We're not a very deep county with people, and oftentimes when you're pulled to handle one of these operations, the department you're pulled from isn't replacing you, and the common core work of the county stagnates. So those first two are vital, and I know there's a lot of work happening on them. It's just, again, permanency.
Thank you for the background. Go ahead, Supervisor.
Sure. I just want to reiterate that we've talked a lot about this, and we are trying to come up with a better approach than put all the equipment in the closet and then take it out when we need it and find a place to put it, because that's what we're doing right now, and it's maddening to especially people like Brent who are trying to run a professional organization. So it's something that maybe in the olden days that was okay because we didn't have the kind of emergencies that we seem to be having annually these days. So we're feeling like we've got to do something to strengthen us, and I agree completely with what Eisen has said. And then we also need to help a little bit reaching out to the community to have contingencies with groups that work with us really, really closely. And I noticed Noah Sands made a good point about her organization, which is United Disaster Relief of Northern California. They've been extraordinary with the fires that we've had, even last year with the Hopkins fire. Danola is really set up well to help fire victims and get their feet on the ground again. So it's a place where you can go for resources in terms of real simple stuff like getting a toothbrush and a towel right after a fire, so you at least have something. And then she helps people locate places to live, and she's assisted with finding grant resources. And we're getting too good at this in a sense. I mean, we've had so many disasters that we know how to do stuff, but we need to have it pretty prepared so that we have an institutional memory, and we're ready to react when something bad comes up. And then the pandemic is also another example of how it puts stress on an organization. I'm sure that Anne would really like this to go away, especially after today. Anne, tell everybody just real briefly what happened. It blew my mind with what you had to tell me. So
Well, just a little COVID pandemic update is that we had over 100 adult cases today, positive cases, and over 200 student cases today. And that's way higher than it has ever been in Mendocino County before. We can't really track everything as well because now there's so many home tests that people are doing, and those don't always get tracked. So we know that the number is actually much higher than that. And around that particular pandemic issue, we invite you to tune in to these same channels of YouTube, the county website, and Facebook tomorrow at 2 p.m. The public health officer, Dr. Andrew Korn, will be giving an update then.
Thanks. And I'm going to ask Sarah, maybe just to catch us up in terms of some of the public comments that you're seeing. Again, we're welcoming your comments and your input on this first goal about increased disaster and emergency preparedness and resiliency. Sarah, what's coming in from the guests on the Q&A?
Yeah, and if we can make the PowerPoint full screen, that would be great. I know I use a small computer at home, and it's kind of tougher on the eyes to see, so it'd be fabulous if we can make
Sorry,
it
I
full.
thought that was that way.
Thanks, Anne. Sorry to call. I texted you, messaged you on there, but I know it's easy to miss these things. So a few comments we're getting. One from Danila Sands, who is the, I believe, director or president of the United Disaster Relief of Northern California, a disaster resource center located in Mendocino County. And they've assisted with over 30 disasters, beginning with the Redwood Fire in 2017, and most recently the Hopkins Fire and the Covelo snowstorm power outage. And they are not listed on the EOC's list, as she states here, despite a lot of support from the community. So she would like to see that change and perhaps connect with folks here to see how the Disaster Resource Center can be a part of the conversation. Thank you, Danila, for being here and sharing that tonight. Let's see here. We'll get to some of these other comments a little later about cell reception, et cetera. So thank you for sharing those. Any ideas about the EOC, how we can develop a possible permanent site for that? Where do you think it should be? What kind of equipment should they have? And what do you think of the county's current use of social media? We would like to hear your thoughts and ideas.
Sarah, I see one from Michael about the emergency access program. Do you see that one?
I do. Sorry, I'm going from the beginning to the middle, and there's a lot coming in here. So yes, and feel free to jump in and read them too. You're all welcome to. Michael says that the county should create an emergency access program for folks who need to tend to their agricultural businesses, including cannabis businesses in areas that may be safe to enter during a fire emergency. A combination of departments, including MCSO, Ag, and OES have tried to set this up for years with the Farm Bureau, et cetera, and it has not been developed or implemented, and that we should be addressing this before the next fire season. Thank you for that suggestion. Lawrence is back again. Thanks for joining us once more. And they say that the county, Lawrence, I apologize.
Lawrence, I see that. Thank you for making that pronunciation clear. Thanks.
I sincerely apologize.
Okay.
You should hear my last name, so.
Don't even start, right?
I need to spell it out like that, don't I? I digress. The county needs to work with existing local organizations that already respond in emergency situations, especially to relieve these organizations once the county can reach areas due to our remote and large county and be able to offset monetary outlays that local groups take on when the county has the funds to offset these costs. The county should also take responsibility for properties they manage with weed abatement for fire safety. We'll be talking about that in a few minutes. Great idea. Thank you.
It looks like Robert is saying we may want to have a schedule and actual training. Having a nebulous schedule makes training hard to do. So we should say maybe quarterly regarding training. So that's good to get very specific information. Thanks.
And it looks like we also have a comment as somebody who works in social media. This is interesting and relevant. Amy Wynn says that they don't use Facebook. They use Instagram, but they haven't looked for a county Instagram account. What works for me is being on the county's email list for announcements. And again, as someone who works with social media, I think it's so important to be on many platforms because not everybody accesses one or the other. Thanks, Amy, for that suggestion. And glad that the email list is working out.
Great.
And
Gary, do you
Vanilla has another great comment here too. I think EOC should have a permanent location, and that she can relate to this with her organization. And then, of course, good cell service alerts, good green signage for emergency personnel, and some other great ideas in regards to on-site and social media with the county. It's gotten better over time. Emergencies such as wildfires are no longer a new norm. They're actually a norm. Thank you.
Watson gave us some input too, Sarah. One was related to a topic we had last night about how broadband and countywide cell service must be a top priority because it's an enabling component of all these strategic priorities, and particularly hits home in this area of disasters and emergencies. Communication is critical to warn residents of emergencies, and infrastructure must be in place throughout the county to assure people are notified. The second comment too relates to a topic we were talking about yesterday around building. County building and planning codes need to better address fire safety requirements, such as more fire resistant construction and materials, seismic activated gas valves, mandated vegetation clearances, fire safety access routes, etc. Thank you for that. Appreciate that input.
Thanks. I just want to repeat our email address again. I think I see some emails that have come in. The email address again is GOVT strategic plan at mendocinocounty.org. So feel free to email us as well. And I know that Maya, you put something in the chat. Sarah, what do you see that Maya's put in the chat? Looks like
I'm trying to parse them. Maybe I need new glasses. I don't know. I'm a little slow tonight here. Looks like Nicholas, because some of them are pretty long, so I have to had to pre-read them. Nicholas says that they think permanently placing the EOC is essential. The impact to county operations and services has been regularly impacted by spur of the moment changes in placement. Thank you for that. And we have another email here or message stating that the EMS ambulance system, which we'll actually be talking about here shortly, I believe.
Yes.
Maybe we'll touch back to that one in a moment.
Yep. Let's touch base on that one a little bit later. Any other thoughts or comments?
Yeah, we have a few more comments here. Loren C says that social media is only effective when internet communications exist. Other methods should be established for those without access, and or when communications are down, when local radio stations are key. Anna Garza also says for EOC, we may need 2 locations, coast and inland. The coast would be cut off in the event of some types of disasters. And we heard that with the employee feedback too, BJ and Gary. I remember seeing that mentioned a lot.
Absolutely. Also, I want to put a shout out to Miriam Petrillo, who has been really wonderful to share the word about these town halls with her networks. And she's saying, don't forget our local business community, especially in unincorporated areas. Training in how to place important documents in the cloud and a plan for locating your employees when disaster strikes. Thank you for that. Supervisor McGordy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say we have even another message coming in from email or social media that also supports the idea of having mobile operations, the EOC in more, maybe one in Willits as the center and expanding outside so they can access more rural and isolated areas too.
Thanks for that, Sarah.
Thank you. Please,
Supervisor McGordy has a hand up. So.
Yeah, just a real quick shout out to KZLX and our public radio station is very, very good and very integral part of getting information out, because radio waves do go through most of Mendocino County on one level or another, and they've proven to be just invaluable when we've had to respond to a disaster, and people tune in. They know to tune in. They have a news department, so they're very, very good about assisting us.
That's great.
I'm a proud KZYX member, by the way.
Good for you, Sarah. I'm going to go ahead, and you don't even live in the county, but that's good for you. Let's go ahead and I'd like to move to the next one. Keep your comments coming in, but let's go ahead and move to that next one. It's about ensuring access to rural fire protection and emergency medical services. So let's look at what this says. Let's look at our objectives, and then we want your feedback, just like you've been providing earlier. Number one is to support recruitment efforts of firefighters for volunteer fire departments. The second one is to work with the Mendocino County Fire Safe Council to develop neighborhood fire safe councils in communities throughout the county, and to seek funding to increase the number of available ambulances with advanced life support features. Do any of our panelists want to comment on this? Is this anything Supervisor McGorty wants to share the importance of, or Eisen, any of our team tonight?
Well, I'll just state real clearly that they're all important things, and we've done a pretty good job with PG&E funds to try to upgrade our fire departments, particularly Redwood Valley. Potter Valley received quite a lot of funding, and Redwood Valley really was in need of it because it was kind of a fixer-upper department. So hopefully we'll see an improvement in the ability of them to get to fires. They actually had a horrible incident where their fire engine broke down on the way to a fire. So that's hopefully fixed. So in the future, that should be better. Recruitment is a big issue. So we're getting demographically in a situation in Mendocino County, especially in the more rural communities where there's fewer and fewer younger people. So this is something that we're having to address. We did again invest in structures where we can simulate fires with our PG&E settlement money. So we hope to do some advanced fire fighting. The fire safe councils are absolutely integral to our well-being. I think Scott Craddy is on this call, and Scott is the head of the Mendocino County Fire Safe Council, and he works for the Mendocino County Resource Conservation Service, or district rather, and we're realizing now we can't continue with the kind of conditions that we have around communities where there's been really no vegetation management for years and years. So part of Smokey the Bear that wasn't so good was that in the olden days, California used to burn pretty regularly. In fact, the native peoples would deliberately set things on fire, which was good because it takes out the underbrush, leaves fewer, bigger trees that are more fire resistant. We probably, when Europeans first came here, there would have been 30 to 50 trees per acre. Now we're over 300 to 400 in a lot of cases, and these kinds of forests really burn much easier. So vegetation management is becoming really important, and something that we're going to have to do. And finally, the ambulance situation is also something we're trying to address and seeing what we can do to improve the ability of emergency responses. And it's really tough in rural communities because remember, there's parts of Mendocino County we can get to San Francisco quicker than we can to some places in the South Coast and the northeast part of our county. So sending an ambulance or getting emergency responses in those places is tough, and we're well aware of that, and that's why we're talking about this as part of our plan.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and open it up to our participants. I see, I'm gonna see if we can answer one question. I see that there's a question from Julie Golden asking you, Supervisor McGorty. I'm gonna put you on the spot. I don't know if you know the answer to this. Do you know how many ambulances we do have in the county?
I do not.
Okay, I don't know that either. Just thought I'd ask that. So don't know offhand. Eisen, do you happen to know? Okay, sorry about that, Julie. We can't respond right now. Sarah, what are you seeing in terms of comments are coming in?
Yeah, we have a few here. I'm going to go back to the email one we have that's in the chat. That says Mendocino County's emergency medical systems, EMS ambulance system is on a degrading trajectory and needs to be supported. Rural ambulances, Examples, Covelo, Anderson Valley, Elk, and Laytonville in particular are relying on dedicated volunteers and a select few to hold the fragile system together. To ensure county residents and visitors have quality and timely access to EMS and ground ambulance transportation, the county should invest in our rural ambulance services and support ambulance staffing issues. This is a real and ever-growing issue that needs a real solution as the county moves forward. Thank you for that comment. And we have another one from Jessica in Round Valley that they also need phone service. And also, Jessica also made a comment because there are a lot of emergencies, she says, and that no one can call for help because we have such an incredibly frequent cell phone disruptions, including elders who have not been able to call for medical care. And during fire season, this is life or death. She also mentions that Covelo needs a fire hydrant system in a prior message. So, and that so many of their buildings have been destroyed by fires. So there's a few suggestions from Jessica and folks on via email. I have to scroll down a little bit though, because I was holding those from earlier.
Another comment here, Sarah. We've
Thanks,
been
Gary.
talking a lot about ambulances, but one of the comments from Watson is given the county's terrible rural road network, medical air transport and telemedicine availability are essential. And again, this requires good broadband cell service and the former continued access to air med care. But that's true, airlifting out in case of disaster is a wonderful and critical alternative to an ambulance coming out.
Yeah,
and then
that's-
another comment too about let's not just focus on fire here too. There's earthquakes and other disasters, obviously, physical disasters that might affect the county too.
Yeah, and I think that's a
Go
good,
ahead.
interesting point about the airlifts is that anyone who's involved in emergency response in Mendocino County knows how reliant the county already is on the limited number of helicopters there are available to the region. So,
Lorenzi makes a comment too about this isn't just about equipment, ambulances. This is also about paramedics and EMTs and trained staff to do the work. And I think a lot of communities, this is kind of in line with the supervisor's comment, has seen diminishing numbers of personnel available. And if the schools aren't offering programs in this and students aren't being led to develop careers in EMT and paramedic work, the ambulances go empty. So it's critical that the staffing and training is going on simultaneously.
I
Yeah,
see
it
we're
looks
getting some information in from EOC Mendocino County, and the comment is that we have, I believe we have 7 or 8 EMS vehicles, just to circle back to that. Sarah,
Great.
what else are you seeing?
It looks like we just have one more comment that's came in from Amy about this specific subject, and she writes that a goal and implementation policy to prepare a programmatic coastal development permit to approve major vegetation in all areas of the coastal zone to remove dead, dying, and diseased trees and vegetation. And that there's a lot of work to be done, it looks like. And she gives a great example regarding the northern Bishop Pine Forest. And that's great. And these longer comments are awesome. So please share all of your ideas. You can also email us if you have more to share.
And a simple idea, just see from EOC Mendocino County, is a public information plan would assist with coordinating various public messaging platforms. A plan within a plan.
Yeah,
Supervisor
nothing-
McGordy.
Just a real quick comment on the what's going on the coast with the pine forest. So they're past their useful life, so to speak. So both bishop pine and shore pine normally are regenerated about every 50, 60 years by fire. And fire is an important part of the ecology of a lot of our forests. They're meant to burn. And we really haven't had a really good fire on the coast since about 1906. So that's why we see so many dead and dying trees. And now we have houses all over the place, so we can't set the place on fire and manage it the way that it would have been. It is a huge issue. There's a lot of dead trees which present problems for health and human safety.
And
Thank
it
you for
gets
that.
even more complex when you're working with county, state, federal partners, right? BJ, I don't see any other comments coming in aside from my little comment there.
Okay, okay. Gary, anything you see?
Nothing I think that we haven't talked about. I didn't know if there was anything via Facebook or the email that we want to pick up at this time too.
I've went through
Yeah,
everything I see in our chat, so
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I've
think
been
we-
adding, sorry about that, excuse me, it's Maya. I've been adding the smaller pieces. I have quite a few emails that I will be incorporating into the extended notes.
that's great.
Great. I think we can probably move on, and please keep those ideas coming. Just because we move on from a subject doesn't mean you can't keep commenting and sharing. Oh, and Lima actually just dropped a new comment really quickly here. Good to see you again. It mentions that attracting talent and retaining them will always be an issue. And let's be proactive, and there's that housing again. How housing situations for EMS, fire, and police, how we can develop that. Thank you. Okay, on to you
Thank
two.
you. Thank you. I love these creative ideas that are coming in. It's really so important to help to inform our planning process. So the last goal of a prepared and resilient county kind of moves us into a little different direction. We're looking at transportation access routes. So the first specific objective is to identify supplemental funding sources to implement priority road system improvements. I know that the county has already determined what those priority road systems are, but obviously there may not be funding for all of those. So this important piece is to find that supplemental funding. The second part is to determine the feasibility of increasing Mendocino Transit Authority routes and access points and implement changes accordingly. And then the third one is to encourage the development of road associations through public education and support. So any comments on this? Supervisor McGorty, anything you want to share with us about the importance of these?
Roads are one of the biggest problems we have in California, period. And I think we have a budget of $6 or $7 million a year for road repair. And according to Howard Dashiell, our Department of Transportation director, if we fixed everything that needed fixing, we need about $600 or $700 million. So here's our problem: a big county with a lot of infrastructure and not much tax base to pay for it. And Howard's getting to the point where he's saying we should give up on pavement on some of our rural roads, and we should be like Vermont and Sweden, where they have a lot of graveled roads because there's no other way to manage pavement in their extreme cold climates. I would hate that, but it could be the reality for us that we don't have any other way to deal with some of the more really rural parts of the county. If that happens, I hope that we would at least have paved roads in front of people's houses, like I've seen in southern Humboldt County, where there's a lot of dirt roads, but they pave around people's homes so that they at least don't have big clouds of dust when things go through. I feel very defeated when I think about things like that. The bus routes, the problem, of course, with buses is people have to ride them, and we're so car oriented and almost have to be here because it's. I know that, for instance, they had buses on Old River Road for a while. They had a route, but nobody was using it. It went from Talmadge to Hopland, and they were kind of hoping that maybe people who worked at Fetzer and so forth would want to take the bus, but we really couldn't come up with a good schedule. That being said, I'd hope that we, at least through kind of our main Russian River towns here, that we can have dependable transportation 3 or 4 times a day that would bring people so that they don't need to drive. If you want to go from Ukiah to Hopland and go wine tasting, that there'd be a way to do that without having to bring your car with you, but safely get home. So that needs to be explored more. And I know that we have supervisors working on standing committees on some of these issues. So, and I'm not as familiar with it as I probably should be.
The roads issue, like you're saying, Supervisor, is a pretty vexing one. It's true in Sonoma County too, and I think that your transportation department maintains a list of planned road improvements, but you just can't get to everything you'd like to do. And Watson mentioned something like that in that input as well. It's we should be able to list the planned road improvements, the cost, the completion status, maybe on a website, so that the public is aware that you're knocking off some of these projects, and with that kind of transparency, they can see the progress too.
And I know that there is a list on that point. I know that that Howard Dashiell maintains a list, and it's pretty discouraging when you look through it, because there's about a 30-year cycle before things are going to come around and your road's going to get paved in front of you in a lot of places. So
One of the suggestions too was for county roads with significant travel and that are poorly designed and maintained, such as Mountain View or Philo Greenwood, the county should explore transferring these to Caltrans. Is that a possibility that you've explored in the past?
I don't know. I'm sure that all options have been looked at and pursued, because um, Howard Dashiell is pretty good at finding money. If it exists, he will track it down.
Okay. And then we had another comment that steers us away from the roads, which steers us away, which suggests from Jessica, investing in little rural communities and helping to expand housing opportunities in walkable communities will help reduce demand on roads, reduce carbon emissions, and help strengthen communities. So it's a little different tilt than we've been focused on in some of this conversation.
I really like that, and I've traveled to Europe in my work a lot, and my ancestors, of course, are from Ireland, and the unfortunate thing there is that they started out really heavily in a village idea, but they're also becoming like Americans. They want to drive places. So, but having walkable communities is really wonderful, and I've visited some in California that are great, where people don't need their car every day to go do what they need to do.
Great. Sarah, is there anything you're seeing coming in?
Let's see. We have a few. Well, here's one comment about public transportation from Robert, who says people don't want to use MTA. They use it most likely because they have to. It's familiar to me growing up in the Midwest. That's how it often was too. So thanks for that feedback. Let's see here. Robert also gives 2 suggestions on problematic areas when it comes to roads, especially during fires. The famous Sherwood Road and also the backside of Redwood Valley as target areas to look at improving. Let's see here. Devin joins us tonight. Welcome. And says that properly engineered and maintained non-paved roads could be workable. The key is maintaining, which comes with cost. The other issue is the need to interact with the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board and other agencies related to sedimentation concerns. Thanks, Devin, for bringing that up.
We haven't had too much input on road associations. I'm assuming that several of our participants are familiar with road associations. We've had kind of mixed reviews, frankly, to this objective when we've tested it with employees in some groups. I'd be curious for those participants that are either part of a road association or have some familiarity, if you can maybe give us some suggestions or comments to enrich this particular objective too.
Yeah, is there one for Sherwood Road? I would think that, I know that, I'm surprised if they don't have one.
So one of the things that we're working on are called Community Service Area 3 arrangements or agreements, which allows and the Sherwood Road area is doing this for emergency egress and ingress during forest fires, and it allows without going through the whole tax process, the creation of a way to collect fees to maintain emergency access and ingress or other things. So it's part of we're looking at that also possibly for the East Hills of Ukiah, because it's a similar one way in, one way out situation. And we're trying to get around creating a little bit more safety. So that's still kind of in the developmental phases, because it requires legal agreements. So our county council, I know, is working on it. Supervisor Hashtag, unfortunately, is not here because he can tell you the whole story. But it is one method that could be used, at least for safety arrangements. The problem is when we start putting in parcel taxes and things like that, it requires a decision by the voters, and a lot of times we have absentee landlords. So these are all things that make it difficult to go that route for road improvement. And finally, a lot of people are angry about having to pay more taxes for road improvements, since we already have the highest gas taxes in the nation. And they're wondering, why aren't we getting the money? And I spent locally, and You know, I don't have the answer for that, and it's one of the things that I know is a personal annoyance for me too. So
Thank you. Any comments we see? Sarah, how about you? Anything you see coming in?
Let's see here. We actually have a question that Sarah Marks asks from social media, and that the county's emergency information, as she put it, encourages residents to use the NOAA weather radio, like they do in Sonoma County. And she asks if you hear fire emergency alerts. And as someone who has one, you do not get fire alerts, only weather. So snow, rain. Just wanted to throw that out there. One question I'm able to answer.
Thank you. Thank you for
But
that.
we have a good suggestion again regarding public transportation from Lauren C. That rural areas like Covelo would benefit from even a weekly morning pickup and evening return route for those without transportation or unreliable transportation to be able to do business in other areas. Thank you for that idea. Good to hear some public transportation ideas coming in. And let's see here. I believe Supervisor McGordy was mentioning ingress and egress issues, and Anna said that she'd like to see a goal set to address that, and that too many areas in the county only have single access, making disaster response difficult at best and life-threatening if we don't plan now. It's a complicated problem, and often potential secondary access routes are located on private land. Regardless, we need to begin. Identify and prioritize those areas, and of course, look for the money and do it where it's most needed. Thank you, Anna, for that suggestion.
Gary, I know you're only with us for a few more minutes because I know you've got another meeting you've got to jump on, but are you seeing anything, any final comments you'd like to make before Sarah takes over from you?
Just that I really appreciate the diversity of ideas, and I'm definitely seeing some things tonight the task force can wrestle with and you know, consider for inclusion in the plan. I think there's some terrific input, and just want to thank all the panelists before I jump off and really appreciate your insights and your participation tonight. So thank you all.
Thank you, Gary. Sarah, I see something that's come in the chat about private road associations. Do you want to talk about that?
I don't really know much about private road associations. Michael just says that we need to properly mark and identify roads for emergency access. But we don't have a private road association where I live, so I haven't been involved in one. So, but it looks like we have a comment also from Travis coming in that Sherwood Road is a county road, and many of the rural subdivisions that branch off Upper Sherwood have road associations. But that just shifts the responsibility and costs of maintenance to residents, which is one of the things that we've seen come up in focus groups that Gary had mentioned regarding the challenges of having these road associations is to whom does the burden lie with? So,
yeah. Anything else that we see coming in here?
Nothing much else specifically about this area, this subject. So, yeah.
And I know Watson's asking a question. I'll just mention it here. Will the strategic plan be published and regularly updated on the county website? I'm going to ask Ann about this one. Against milestones to provide transparency for residents. Ann, do you want to address this? Oh, we've got a little bit of time to do that if you would like to.
Sure. The short answer is yes. Very much yes. So I don't know the exact format it's going to take yet. We have some samples, and then we'll also just be using what seems logical depending on what are the priorities that come out. So the board will consider all of this from staff, from the public, from other documents that we have here in the county. For example, last night we talked a lot about Move 2030. Supervisor McGordy mentioned Howard DeShield and the Department of Transportation's long list of roads that need to be cared for and maintained better. So when all of those documents are brought together, then they will choose their priorities. After that, we will be talking about them publicly, setting objectives, timelines, resources that are going to go to them. And then we'll have benchmarks for when do we expect to accomplish these things. So those will all be very public. The one thing I do want to say is something that's come up in board meetings before is the need to be both dreamers at the same time that we're being realistic, because we know that we can't repair every road, and we know that we can't have MTA taking one person to Philo 3 times a day. I mean, there are certain things that just are part of how we live here in Mendocino County and how spread out we are, and the limited tax base that we really have. So I would love to hear from the public, if they had to eliminate something, what would they eliminate? We can certainly, I love the idea, and I'm sure it's just that I don't work in roads, so I don't know about it, but I love the idea of seeing what could we transfer to the state, Caltrans. I would love to look at that, and I bet Mr. DeShields has already looked at it. But while we're looking at new grants and things like that, we also have to look at what can't we do. The county's pretty flush right this moment because of support that we've received from the state and federal government around the pandemic. But that doesn't mean that all that money isn't going to get spent pretty quickly. And we can't be planning to use over and over again monies that are really one-time monies. It's not like we have a huge new tax base that is going to continue on in the future. So I'd just love to hear if somebody ever saw something, either a priority the county has or a big expense the county has, that they think they want the supervisors to reconsider. I would love to hear any of those ideas, either now or by email. Thank you.
Thanks. Sarah, are we seeing anything else coming in? Thank you for that, Anne. And are we seeing anything else? Looks like several comments have come in.
Yeah, we do. Some of them are related to this specific objective. Some aren't. So I'm just going to kind of read and look at here what we have. And we're not going to be able to respond to too many questions, of course, tonight, but you can email us. I posted our email in the chat.
Thanks, Sarah.
So you can email us your questions and the county staff will do their best to get back to you. Lima mentions a trash problem in the village of Mendocino, specifically the trash cans reaching capacity faster. And then that garbage, of course, can go into the coast, et cetera, into the ocean, and that needs to be also prioritized by the county. Thank you for that recommendation. And Judy, regarding road improvements, she says that this is an unusual idea, but perhaps spending less time repairing potholes, et cetera, would make people travel more slowly and, when possible, walk more rather than jumping into our car and take a small trip. I like that. Is that some kind of reverse psychology,
Exactly.
The more potholes, the more careful you'll drive. I know it makes me drive carefully. So we have a few questions regarding some funding. Maybe Robert suggests in fiscal year 27, the county will have additional funds because the POB will be paid off. Maybe some of that 8 million can go towards roads. Thank you for that. And then we have another comment here, one more from Devin. In the spirit of supporting local businesses, I wanted to point out that solely looking at funding sources through taxes, parcels, sales, et cetera, for EMS, roads, et cetera, are concerning. Parcel taxes add up for all the special districts, and this is a burden on agricultural and resource properties that have multiple parcels and may not see a return benefit. Some districts also have proposed square footage taxes, which could be significant for larger businesses such as wineries and tasting rooms. Thanks, Devin. Okay, back to you, BJ.
I'm just wondering if there's anything else coming in. I see a question from Lima. I don't know that we know the answer to that tonight. Supervisor McGordy, is there anything that you're seeing or anything you want to mention about the roads and transportation?
So the one thing about, somebody did mention this, was the fact that dirt roads or gravel roads, a big concern, of course, is water pollution, and that's something that is part of our healthy environment. And if we look at what is the biggest single cause of water pollution in Mendocino County, it's sediment coming off of rural roads. So this is something that we all worry about as we have rural road associations, and there is actually grant funding to try to help people get the most egregious problems fixed through the Mendocino County Resource Conservation District as well as the Natural Resource Conservation District. Um, and uh, and Devin Moore brings up a really good point about worrying about parcel taxes, and I'm one of those people who worries about it because I have 3 parcels. So it's not just like a little add-on to your tax bill; it starts to get kind of major. So when someone says, "Oh, well, $100 a parcel, that's not a big deal," but when you think of some of our ranches having somewhere between 20 to 50 parcels, it is a big deal. So
Yeah.
we're really cognizant of that as at the Board of Supervisors when we start discussing, well, how are we going to fix things? How are we going to raise money for really important stuff like the Potter Valley project and trying to take that over from PG&E, and how do you fund something like that? How do we make sure that we can remain viable in our rural communities? It's a big issue that we think about a lot. And I also think about the fact that one of the advantages of living in town is that they have a little bit better tax base to raise money from. So living in Ukiah becomes more of an option in terms of safety from fires and better roads and access to walkability for stores and things like that. So that a lot of people are kind of refocusing their thinking about being out on a ridgetop somewhere in a forest is a beautiful place to live. It is definitely, but there's also a lot of risk living there because of fire and services. So as people get older here in Mendocino County, I have numerous friends that live out away from town, and they're looking for a place in town because they're saying, "Gosh, if something happens to me, I'm dead. They'll never get here in time to help me," especially with our ambulance situation the way it is. So these are all things that affect our community and affect our well-being, where we actually live, and if something goes wrong, are you going to be saved? I even joke about that. My property is in two different fire districts. I pay fees to Ukiah Valley as well as to Hopland, and I'm kind of like equidistance from all the fire stations. So by the time that either one of them gets here, if I have a serious problem, my house will probably be gone. That's part of rural life that we think about that maybe isn't such an issue in other parts of the county.
Thank you, Supervisor McGordy. I know that Elizabeth Garcia from Agriculture has a comment.
Hi, thank you, and thank you all for coming today. Elizabeth Garcia with the Department of Agriculture. I'm sorry, I'm a little late on responding, but there was a comment about being able to be escorted into fire evacuation zones. And I want to let you know that it is a priority with the strategic planning team to increase disaster emergency preparedness, but it also is a priority with the Department of Agriculture. And it is our priority this year to work in cooperation with the sheriff and the EOC to be more ready to be able to provide the EOC and the sheriff's department escorts for people that have livestock and need to get into evacuation zones to take care of their agricultural commodities. So that is not only a strategic plan priority, but it is a priority with the Department of Agriculture as well. I just want to let you know that we are working on that.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you so much for that. Any more? I don't see many more comments coming in. Sarah, do you?
Just a couple more, and I think we can probably send it back to you. And let's see here, related to the subject here. Jessica says that allowing for greater housing density in towns will reduce rural road demands, and that if we're not working hard to reduce vehicle miles driven and increasing electric vehicle use, we're only making our future more unstable due to climate change. Thank you very much for that comment.
Thank you, Jessica. And we did address that 2 nights ago. We looked at some of those electric vehicles.
Yeah, then we have one more message in here from in the chat from social media or email that 3 of the 4 cities in the county have voter imposed transportation sales taxes for streets. The 4th city, Ukiah, has a similar advisory measure. Although not popular, perhaps the county should consider this. There are state funding programs available only to these self-help agencies, quote unquote, that the county is missing out on. Thank you for that comment.
Appreciate it when people bring things to our attention. Elizabeth, is your hand still up or is it a new hand up? Okay, this is curious. Anything else?
Nope, back to you.
All right. I think we have gotten so many ideas and information to really help to inform this plan. So we are just really grateful, not just for tonight's participation, but I know some of you are frequent flyers and you've been on all of our town halls this week, and we're really grateful that you've taken an interest in the plan and your community and the county to be able to share this information with us. Let's go ahead to that final slide and just to share with everybody what we're going to do. It says here, we want you to attend the Board of Supervisors meeting that is going to be on January 25th. So on January 25th, I don't know that we have the time yet, but we're planning to make a presentation. I know Gary and I will be making a presentation to the Board of Supervisors to show them what we have at this point based on your feedback, based on all the feedback that we've gotten so far, both internal and external feedback. And then it'll be up to the Board of Supervisors to give us feedback and to encourage us to make revisions as necessary to incorporate the ideas that they want to see for the direction for the county. Supervisor McGorty, any final comments from you as we check out tonight?
Sure. First and foremost, thank you for everybody who joined our meeting tonight and viewed it and participated. It's really, really helpful to get especially all the positive feedback and ideas that people have given us. We really appreciate that. And I just want to let you know we're really committed to strategic planning. It's been on the radar of the board for some time, but finally, when this last cycle, when Supervisor Mulhern and myself were voted in, we have experience from strategic planning. Me with the Ukiah Unified, her with the city of Ukiah, and I'm totally committed to it as well. And I have the saying that if you don't have a map and you start out on a trip, it's pretty hard to end up getting to where you want to go. And I think that really is the case in government as well. We have to prioritize. We have to know what's important to people, and we have to know how to spend our money wisely so that we can allocate our limited resources to the places where it really makes a difference. And that's why I believe in the concept. The next big part's going to be implementing it and getting buy-in from all of the departments and our administration and the board themselves as we move forward so that we spend our money wisely and follow the plan. So I really appreciate that Gary and BJ have been with us and Sarah, because they're they've done this for other counties and other organizations, and they know the process. And it's when you're undertaking something like this, it's really good to have advanced players helping you. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thank you very much. And I just want to remind everybody that all of the information that you've put into the emails and into Q&A will be part of the public record that will be shared with the Board of Supervisors. So they'll see all of your comments, and then we're going to be integrating some of the key points into the final plan. I just want to thank everybody who has participated on the team to put this together. I want to thank everyone so much for participating this evening. Anne, as our project manager, our fearless leader, any final comments that you'd like to have tonight? You can unmute yourself if you'd like to share anything tonight. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Don't let the bureaucracy get you down. Come on out, keep talking, keep working, and we can actually make Mendocino County an even better place to live.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening.
Recording stopped.